What's going on, everyone? Nick here with HN Entertainment's review for Terminator Dark Fate, which is the new reboot / sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, directed by Tim Miller and godfathered by the legendary James Cameron. The film stars Mackenzie Davis, Natalia Reyes, Linda Hamilton, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, with a new Terminator played by Gabriel Luna. Now, in terms of first impressions and kind of overall thoughts going into the film, I was actually very skeptical of the project. When it was first announced and Tim Miller was attached as director, and we heard that James Cameron was going to be much more heavily involved with this film, I actually was pretty excited for it, especially after the announcement that Linda Hamilton and Arnold would be returning. But when the marketing started up properly for the film and the trailers came out, I was actually kind of let down and a little bit worried, honestly, about the project. But coming out of the theater last night, all my fears were relieved. I honestly wasn't ever super jazzed up about the film, but it actually kind of impressed me in many different ways. So in terms of the new cast of characters that are going to be, the prominent ones here, we have Mackenzie Davis, who's playing a human from the future with augmented abilities named Grace, who comes back to 2019 to save a girl named Dani Ramos, played by Natalia Reyes, who's essentially the lead character of the film. Now, even though Sarah and John Connor stopped Judgment Day back in the 90s, the future that Grace comes from, there's a new enemy called Legion, and they have produced new Terminators called the Rev 9 model, which can transform and everything, and they have like tentacles that come out of their bodies, and they can also split. Now, a lot of the early impressions for the film said it's kind of like the Force Awakens of the series, providing somewhat of a soft reboot, while also treading over things that, are franchise staples, and I can agree with that in many respects. It definitely feels like a lot of the best parts of Terminator 1 and 2 kind of, mixed together, I guess you could say, but also there are a lot of new elements because this story takes place in modern days. So you have, modern technology, you have cell phones, cameras everywhere, you have the overall military presence, how it's evolved, new weaponry and things like that. So obviously you have a modern version of the Terminator storyline happening, so you can't really have people running around because the Terminator can just plug himself into a port anywhere and kind of see where you are from basically anywhere because of the idea of, cell phones and smart technology and the idea that there's cameras everywhere and the government can track people from basically any location. Cameron and Tim Miller did say that if this movie is successful, they already have an outline for 3 movies to make this a trilogy, and you can definitely see it here in the story. This certainly feels like the first chapter in what could be a storyline, but at the same time it is actually pretty self-contained, so if it did end here, it would be pretty satisfying. In terms of negatives, I'd probably say that the biggest issues with the film are that it's paced too fast at times, so things just kind of move quickly. You don't really get the time to breathe and actually, understand the characters too well. I think that's definitely one of the issues with the main character, Dani, played by Natalia Reyes, because since she's supposed to be the new Sarah Connor of the entire franchise, we only really know her on who she is as a person and things like that, but she is actually pretty strong in terms of a character. It's just we don't really get to explore her too much as we did for other protagonists. There is also kind of a lack of explanation in terms of what the Rev 9 Terminator is capable of, what he can do, and also what Legion is, but I guess you could make the argument that in the original Terminator film, they didn't really explain what Skynet was too much, and a lot of stuff was glossed over until the second film, which really expanded upon the lore in many different ways. As for my final thoughts, I thought this was definitely a solid entry in the Terminator franchise, and if this is definitely going to be retconning 3, 4, and 5, it's all for the best, because this is certainly stronger than any of those films, and it's probably even stronger than the Sarah Connor Chronicles TV show. The movie genuinely made me excited to see where things could go from here, and I hope the film is successful enough that they could actually make sequels to it. If you guys did get a chance to check out Terminator Dark Fate early in theaters, let me know what you guys thought of it down in the comment section below, but let's try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible because there are some big reveals that the marketing has not shown thus far. So I really enjoyed the film. I was actually pleasantly surprised by it. I went in with, low expectations, a lot of hesitation about it because I didn't like the trailers, but it actually kind of impressed me in many different aspects. So if you guys are fans of the Terminator franchise, be sure to check it out in the theaters next weekend. I think you're going to get pleasantly surprised by it and actually be excited for the future of the Terminator franchise. But for all things pop culture and the latest movie reviews, be sure to subscribe to HN Entertainment.